Welcome to Film Fu, where the culture is clean as the kicks. I'm Shifu Pain, and when it comes to martial arts, it's an unwritten truth that hand-to-hand combat can only really take you so far.
Whether it's on the grounds of ancient battles or present training dojos, weapons training is a subject that every practitioner should at least dabble in for greater proficiency.
Why just take the fundamental weapon of Kung Fu, the gun? I mean the staff!
What makes staff training so important is that it teaches greater balance, momentum control, angles, and creates second-hand promotion for the greatest character to ever walk the pages of a novel.
And in the world of Kung Fu, all these weapons are so important, they even made a film about them.
Released in 1982 and directed by Liang Liu, who also stars in and wrote the film, Legendary Weapons of China, or Shiba Ban Yui, also stars Hu Hsiao and Kara Wei, and was also written by Tai Heng Li. Legendary Weapons of China was also produced by Shaw Brothers Productions, who also produced Opium and the Kung Fu Master in 1984 and Martial Arts of Shaolin in 1986. Both of these projects have had the undercurrent throughout of the promotion of a certain segment of China's culture or its martial arts. In Martial Arts of Shaolin, the focus was on the promotion of the temple as a tourist spot and the unification of peoples, whereas Opium and the Kung Fu Master shared the negative reputation of the people of a certain addiction, and the battle between the encroaching colonialist against the fulfilling tradition.
So what does this film have as its focus and themes? Well, let's take a look at the plot and find out.
A cult of sorcery is seeking a way to become immune to knives and gunfire.
Okay, not what I was expecting.
And at the news of an elder of the cult liquidating a branch of the cult, 3 assassins are dispatched to kill him, including Xiao Qing, played by Wei, and Tierra Hao, played by Hsiao. But apparently this guy also knows the secret to the gun thing, so if they need him, why kill him?
I'll explain later.
The 3 assassins all seek the Elder, with 2 finding someone that apparently looks like him, and they subsequently pledge to teach him how to fight so that he can defend himself from the 3rd, until it turns out that he actually is the guy that they were looking for. So they all agree to partner together to right the wrongs of the cult and lead it on a new path.
So what does Legendary Weapons of China have as its focus? I'll give you 3 guesses.
The focus on the weapons of Chinese martial arts weaponry is explicit from minute 1, with a demonstration of the 18 weapons of Kung Fu, brought to us by stuntmen, horses, and people trying to be vampires, with the stated goal of seeking to repel knives and gunfire. The cult brings the theme of the old ways competing against the new world, as this cult is all about sorcery, mysticism, and using people as puppets. But as we see, when they try to fight against the new weapons of guns, using their old knowledge, they fall short and just get their own members killed in the efforts.
If they know that this is obviously not working, why do they keep trying this?
I'll explain later.
I will say that the horror vibes at the start are quite interesting.
Making you feel sort of uncomfortable because it's outside of the usual martial arts vibes you're expecting, making the audience feel as though something is wrong with this cult from minute 1. We later learn that Leo dissolved the branch because he realized that he was leading his students down a dark and dangerous path that ultimately would have killed them. It's clear that he was aware about the cult's plan, but not whether he ever implemented it. It's my opinion that when he found out about the cult's plan and was tasked with implementing it, he dissolved the branch out of protest of the lunacy of the cult.
But how is this character explored further? Through action, of course!
The scene we're looking at today takes place at the start of the 3rd act, with Hsiao and Wei working with Liu to train him or retrain him in Kung Fu. It's sort of a similar story beat to Opium and the Kung Fu Master, with the old master having to relearn to fight to get over a past fault. In Opium and the Kung Fu Master, it was his opium addiction. Here, it's being out of practice, but also the living up to responsibility. What he needs to take responsibility for is that he hid when he could have done anything else. Liu could have confronted the elders or set up another school to try and unbrainwash the students, but instead he did nothing and hid as a woodcutter, allowing other students to die. How does that play in here? Let's find out. The fight gets going when the 3rd assassin finds the trio and prepares to capture Liu. Wei fights off the assassin using a straight sword or a Jian sword or a Longquan. This start of the scene is less a showcase of martial arts and more about the showcasing of pyrotechnics and special effects, in what's, well, a wizard's duel.
No disappearing!
Most of all, this is in the case of Hsiao, as he's still more indoctrinated into the cult at this point, utterly unaware about the true identity of Liu, while Wei uses the sword and while not completely aware of Liu's identity, has a desire to dissolve the cult entirely to lead its members on a better path after seeing the madness of their goal and how much bloodshed it causes.
With that kind of motivation, I wouldn't have minded seeing Wei as the protagonist.
Maybe she secretly is and is doing the same sort of mind trick that makes people think she's a dude, even when wearing several layers of makeup.
I can't tell you what I'm thinking right now.
Liu eventually steps into the fray as a symbol for his taking responsibility for his past neglect. Liu uses Leopard Fist, a form from the 5 animal styles of Kung Fu, made recognizable by that Leopard Fist. Leopard style, or Baojing, is a form that was developed in the Fujian province by a guy named Moat, who was an expert in Choi Li Fu. Leopard is a southern style with some northern Shaolin flavor for good measure. It's all about speed, footwork, and precision. We see this here with some quick foot play between the two, that shifts then to hand to hand.
A key part of Leopard style is that it works within the opponent's box, if you catch my meaning.
More close quarters than, say, Northern Shaolin, which has wide, sweeping motions. Something to take note of is that Liu becomes progressively more comfortable as the fight goes on. As he gains back his strength and fights his demons more and more, he grows in proficiency, starting with shaking fists, then going off balance easily, to going toe-to-toe in the space of a minute. It's clear that he still has a way to go, as, for one thing, he hasn't admitted who he is yet to his cohorts.
But let's shift gears quickly and talk about the sound design for this film, because it's quite familiar.
The sound design is the same as Opium and the Kung Fu Master, with the blows of the fight punctuated by a blow, creating a rhythm that becomes more recognizable to the viewer, as, let's be honest, just seeing people run around and hit each other gets old and messy after a while.
For an example of this, see last week's video.
It's not a surprise that they are so similar. Opium and this film were made by the same production company and are separated by 2 years.
Where the difference comes in between the two is that the action is not as clean as in Opium and the Kung Fu Master.
It may be a consequence of using a style that is more close quarters, but it becomes more difficult to pick apart the blow by blow of the action here. It plays with the risk of the blows blending together, becoming white noise to the audience.
Okay, I'm not sure what advantage that has.
Actually, they seem to be evenly matched throughout the back and forth so far, but things change when Leo rips the shirt off the guy, which was clearly a critical hit on his health bar. What it demonstrates is that Leo is moving closer to his peak, and that the time is coming for him to completely admit the truth and face his responsibilities head on, or that he's ready to come clean. From here, while the assassin lands some hits, they're just absorbed by the master, and his mastery is demonstrated by a small hit to the ear, which blasts the assassin's eardrum.
Pugilism. Can't resist my fingers. How can it resist the foreign gun?
Here's where we get more of an understanding of Leo's reasoning for disbanding this branch of the cult.
As he realized the error in their thinking, and maybe even realized that the new world could not be beaten by the old ways, and that progression was the name of the day.
See, he is Lei Kong. That's right.
You have chosen death.
From here, the fight begins to wrap up as Liu completely comes clean about why he disabled the cult, as he didn't want his students to die and saw that this sorcery was not true kung fu. And as we see, this begins to cause conflict in Haseo, the one out of the trio that has drunk the most Kool-Aid and has bought into it the most. But with hearing that the man who was cared for and fought for him is the man he has been ordered to kill, he doesn't know what to think.
Would heads or tails help?
Liu pins the assassin and bursts another eardrum, ending the fight. Eventually, Hisao does come around and helps to support Liu in the final battle, which is where there's more of a showcase of the 18 legendary weapons of China, with the film ending with the cult elder defeated, and that's it. The only times, though, that the actual weapons of China are given a real spotlight are in the opening titles and in the final act. Generally, when its namesake is the title of the film, it will be the running theme throughout, or a key proponent of the film. In one way, the film has this focus, because the whole point is that this cult is trying to overpower these newer weapons, so that their older weaponry can stay on top.
But why then is the film not called Legendary Magics of China?
Because in martial arts, the human body and the human will are just as much weapons as a sword. The aged Liu has lost or depleted his resolve in the years of hiding and turning away his duty to his students. Much like how Rocky needed Apollo, his old rival, to get back his willpower and win, so too does Leo need the representation of the students he failed by hiding to find his resolve, seek redemption, and redeem the honor of this cult.
So with all of that being said, the clearest takeaway from this film from a martial arts perspective is about the annexing or the refining of a knowledge base over time. It's very much similar to a rock with a diamond at the center of it rolling down a hill, collectively building up more dirt over time, and eventually it's going to be next to impossible to get to that diamond at the very center. Not only that, but the running away, the denial, and the ignoring of issues and problems is not going to sort them out. You need to confront and deal with these issues head on in order to heal, to grow, and in order to move forwards. But I still have one final question to ask about this film. Why was the cult associated with the vampire stuff so much? I mean, vampires exist in Asia. They have their own versions of vampires, right? So how is it that they took influence from, or why is it that they took influence then from Western ideas of vampires? Was that just a weird coincidence? How central was the whole vampire thing to the cult's rituals?
We will explain later.